Now let's move on to the scripting part. For that I'll be opening a new file, so and I'm already in the part where I want to save my file. Okay, so let me name the file as prop2.tickle. okay, now in order to make this file writable, I have to press the NS key. Now the first line of any tickle script is this. Now, as I mentioned earlier, that my approach is that I'll be creating an HTML file, and that into the HTML file whatever necessary commands and the values which is needed for creation of for the generation of the table will be provided through this tickle script. No, so the first step is we should generate or open an HTML file. So for that we will be using the open command. Open command is one of the file handling input-output file handling command of tickle. Now the syntax of an open command is open file name and access mode, and then open the open command, the file name. For our case it's the HTML file, and then access mode is whether we want to read the file, we want to write into the file, or we want to append into the file, or we want to do read and write, both, or so on and so forth. Okay, so now let's move on. Now in case of tickle there are 6 access mode. Okay, now R is basically reading the file. Okay, now if and a file has to be exist, okay, for reading. Okay, in case of the R mode. Okay, and also like now the default mode in open command is the read mode. If we do not provide the access mode, then the interpreter will consider it to be the by default to be the read mode. Okay, now W is the write mode. Now in this case the text the file is open for writing. Now if the file is if it is present, then all the contents of the file is deleted, and then the new whatever we want to write, it's written into the file. However, if the file is not present, then the file is created. Okay, then next A is the A stands for append, and in this case the text file is also open for writing, but however the writing is done in appending mode. That is the contents of the file which was previously present, it is not deleted. Now whatever we want to write into the file, it would be simply appended into the file at the after the end of its line. Okay, in the file. Okay, and then in this case the file must be present. Now next are the R plus, W plus and A plus. The plus indicates that it can be used for reading and writing as well. Now in this case R plus stands for that we will open a text file, and then we can read from the file or write into the file, but the only criteria is that the file must be present. Okay, now W plus is that it also opens the file for reading and writing. However, in this case if the file is not present, then a file is created, and then we can use it for further writing. And if it is present, like as I had said earlier about the write mode, it will delete all the contents of the file, and then it will start writing after clearing the contents of the file. Okay, now A plus is an append mode. In this case also the text file is used for both reading and writing. Now if for reading, then it starts from the beginning of the file, and for writing obviously it writes at the end of the file because it is an append mode. However, if the file is not present, then it will simply create a new file. Okay, these are the access mode of the tickle file. Also we will be using the close command, which is used for closing the file name, because we will be opening the file name, we will see like but however after using it we have to close it, otherwise it will unnecessarily be open and it will simply use up the memory space, which is not wise to do. Okay, now so now my first task is that I have to open and I have to create an HTML file, and that file has to be in the write mode. So for my convenience, I think for my case W plus is the most convenient access mode for generation of the HTML file. Now however I will want to use this HTML file over and over again. Now for that case I will be I'll be using a variable where I'll be assigning this HTML file into the variable, and whenever I want to access that HTML file, I'll be simply using the variable, okay, which we had assigned it into. So let me do that. For assigning the variable, we use set command, and let me name the variable as report. Out here we have what we are doing, we opening the file name. So file name, let it be like we had used this name, so let it remain as it is, report build html. Yeah, I had not kept space, which is wrong, and then I want to open it in W plus mode. Here this W plus, what it will do, it will create build underscore report.html, and it will keep it open for writing purpose. Okay, so now next what we have to we have to do, as I had already said earlier, that we will be printing whatever commands is required for the generation of the table through the through the ticker strip. So in this case, now in order to write into the report file, okay, in which is basically the HTML build report.html, we have to access that build report.html via the report variable, and for that we'll simply use the dollar sign before the report name. Okay, now we have to use, and for printing whatever we want into the report file, we have to use the puts command. Okay, now suppose okay, let's just move ahead and discuss first about the puts command. Now when we talk about the puts command, we know that put command, what it does, it simply outputs a string or any other value into the standard output. However, in that case it will be the HTML file. Okay, now however, in case of puts command, we can use the put command by providing the set of strings or variables, whatever, within the curly braces or within the double quotes. But there is one very important point to be kept in mind at this point, is that whenever we write anything within the curly braces and provide it into the puts command, then in that case what happened, the values or the string inside the curly braces are fixed, and it cannot be changed. It will be whatever is written within the curly braces as it is, it will be printed into the HTML file. However, if you want some kind of substitution, so in that case there will be a number of substitution, because we will be extracting the variables for 15 libraries, so obviously there will be number of values which needs to be further interpreted. Now in that case we use the double quotes. We cannot use the curly braces, as I had mentioned that whatever is written inside the curly braces, it is fixed, and as it is, it will be printed. Okay, now however, okay, so this is the main difference while writing while using the puts command, which we should keep in mind. Okay, now basically it's a good practice to use curly braces when no substitution is required, because it allows more further it allows faster execution as compared to that when we use double quotes. Okay, in double quotes, obviously if we need further substitution, then it will be doing more amount of processing, so it will require slightly more time. Okay, so now, okay, this is what about the puts command is. Now in case of HTML file, now as I had said, in the whatever commands or whatever values is needed, we will be simply providing from the ticker file into the HTML file. Now in case of HTML file, there are certain tags, set of rules or which we should follow while writing an HTML file, or writing into an HTML file, execution of for a proper execution of an HTML file. Now if you open an HTML file and see it just inspect its codes, you will be seeing that the first line of any HTML file is the doc type HTML. However, it is not very important to write that to write the first line, as it will not show any kind of error. Now the next thing is for execution of an HTML file, whatever we want to be executed or whatever we want to be generated or created, it has to be within the HTML tag. The open HTML and close HTML tag is the top level commands, and then after that we will need the body. This is for any HTML file. Then we will have the body commands, open and body tags, open and close tags. And then now for our case, now within the body we can do what we want. Now for our case we want a table, so for that so we will be using the table tag, open table and close table for the table generation. Okay, now these are the basic tags which are required. Now how we will be using that, how we'll be printing it into the HTML file, let's take a look at it now. So now I had opened, what we had done, we had created an HTML file, and we are opening the HTML file for writing purpose. Now so now what do I want to write into the HTML file? So my first thing is let me access the HTML file. Now for accessing the HTML file, I will be using the report variable. Now in this case, these are fixed codes, fixed tags which we need to write into the HTML file. So I'll be using it within the curly braces. Now this is what open tag, class tag. This is the first tag which needs to be written in an HTML file. And let me also write the N1. Now puts, after that in $report, what it will be, we have to close the HTML tag. This is the /HTML. Okay, now this now within this our table will be generated. Okay, now these, okay, now let me write some more. Now this is important in case of an HTML file for its proper execution. Now next tag is the body tag. This is also very important. Everything has to be inside the body tag. So body, now let me close this body. So let me use a single puts command. We can use a single put command, or we can write it separately one by one. After closing the HTML, before closing the HTML, we have to close the body tag. Okay, now as I said, now within this body I have to write my table. Now for that case I can use let me use it in the same puts command. Now for this case I'll be using the table tag. Now in the table tag I want that in each cell of the table there should be a border. So for that I have to use the border command, and in this case it is border equal to double quotes 1. Now okay, now in this case 1 indicates that we want border, and if you write 0 then there will be no border in the table. Okay, now we will not move into that direction now. Okay, now this is done. Now I have to close the table. Also I want to mention, like, we can use double quotes also in each of these cases. Now however, if you use double quotes out here, there you will see an error will be generated, because obviously within the double quotes the string within the double quotes is considered while using the puts command. Now however, when you use the double quotes at the here and out here, then before the one, it will think that this is the end of the puts command, and which will result into some kind of error. So let's just check that, okay, what I'm talking about. So suppose this one, it will show error, because in this case this will be the first double quote and this will be the second double quote. It won't be considering this the value after the first double quote. So let's see. So let me save this. Now for saving, it's colon WQ exclamation mark and enter. So now let me run the tickle file. So TCLSH. Now in the previous optimizing of the STA script, we had been writing the tickle script for specific for OpenSTA tool. So that's why we had to use the STA command for execution of the tickle script. However, this is independent of the tool, so we'll be using the TCLSH command, and let's print that. Now here, like, we have seen extra characters after the close quote. Obviously this is the first quote and this is the close quote. After this there is extra character 1 and double quote, so it shows error. So what we will do, we will simply, as I said, the values, whatever the values we write within the curly braces, it is printed as it is. There is no manipulation. So whatever we give, it will be printed directly. So let me make it curly braces. So I want this, and let's save this. Now let's run this. Oh, sorry, let's run this. Okay, so now there is not showing any error, so our build report.html must be created. So let's just check that. Okay, let me close this. So here the bit HTML report is created. Now let us open this. If you click this, then it will open it directly open in the browser. However, nothing is to be seen now because we have just started the initialization steps in case of HTML now. However, if you want to view whether we have properly written the tags or not, we simply open it. We are using the text editor. Okay, now let's see. So here we are done correctly. So the HTML body table border 1. Now, oh yeah, I forgot to close the table. It's not showing any error because we are not running a table as for now. So I have to close the table tag before the body because the table is it has to be between the body tags. Okay, so that I have to do. So let me close the table. So here, so let me close table. Now this is the closing of. Now within this my table will be written. So next is like what initialization is done. We have what do we want. We have also mentioned by table. We mentioned that we will be creating a table. Okay, now next is we want to write the heading of the table because that is what is the first thing if you we want to do when we write a table. Okay, so now in our case we have seen that we have 9 columns which are required for my table, and therefore the heading table, the heading, it has to be merged up to the 9 columns. Okay, now in this case, now while writing a table, there are certain tags which we will be using over and over again. That is the open and close tr tag, which has nothing. The tr tag is accesses which it accesses one row. Okay, and then it moves ahead. If we use further tr, it will move to the next row and so on and so forth. After that we will be using the td tag. The td tag, it is used to denote the data element or whatever data we want to print at that particular cell. Okay, and then this also will be within open and close tag. Also you'll be seeing that we will be using a number of header tags, which are the h1 h2. Now h1 h2 basically decides the font of the particular string. Now for our case, you'll be seeing that for the main header we will be using h1, and for heading, and for the sub for the title of the columns we will be using the h2 header. Now you can go through and you can change with over the headers h1 h2. Maybe there are quite a number of them, h6 or h7. Okay, I will not be discussing all this. You just check HTML header tags and you will see like till which font the header goes. Okay, so now next is what I have initialized my HTML body and the table is initialized. So my next step is to write the heading of the write the heading for the table. So puts now in $report, what do I want to write? The heading of a table. Now for that case I have to open the tr tag to access the row, and let me close it. Now after that I have to access the cell element. So for that I'll be using the td tag. However, in this case, for merging, I will be using a command known as span. Okay, span command, like how many columns you need, how many columns is required for merging the the rows. Okay, so for that I'll be using column span. Column span is equal to double quotes. I need 9 column has to be merged. Okay, this is done. Span, it does this. And what is the title of the work? I mean, what is the header, like what font size I want, that I have to mention next. So I want the font size. Okay, let me close this tag also first. TD. Okay, now next inside this TD tag I want my contents of the row to be of h1 tag. So h1, and then this is the open tag, this is the close tag. Now what is the title of my table? The title is nothing but static timing analysis. This is the first table, so it will be post underscore synthesis. Okay, now this is done. This has to create a it will show the first row. Okay, let's execute this. Okay, now it's showing no error. Now let's check the command. Okay, now this is, now let's reload. Okay, this is done. Now let's see how does our table look like now. Now look, this is the, okay, here I had somewhere I had forgot to close tag maybe. Let's check. Like this too, I will not be understanding. TD. Oh, here look, I had used there are two greater than symbols, that's why it's showing that greater than thing. Okay, so here I have to remove one. So now let me rerun it. It's okay, we'll just check this now. So now we are, the heading of our table is static timing analysis post synthesis, and here we had merged the 9 columns. Now I'll be showing how do we access the how do you access each column and how do we write into the column. I'll be doing that for the few columns, and for the rest we'll just move ahead fast. Okay, so now for that let me open the file. So now next is our how do we access the each column and how do we insert the title of each column. Now for this again we have to use the puts and $report. In this case for the heading for the first, okay, now first obviously it has to be within the row tr close tag tr. In this case the first data element which or the first column which want to access, it has to be given by dd. Now suppose I want this will not be displayed in the table because in order to be displayed it has to be with after writing the td tag. So this is for only for my understanding. So suppose title equal to simulation number. Okay, this is for my understanding, simulation number. Okay, and now this is the close tag, and what do I want? And I want the size. Okay, now this is a mistake, so this is the simulation number. Then I want this tag to be of h2 size. You can change it, you can work with the header tags. Okay, here like I had used this originally, so I'm sticking to that. Now next in this element what do we want? We want the serial number. Okay, serial number. Okay, now this is done. So let's move to the next. It has to be between the row, in a single row, right? Let's access the next column, so which is td. So in this case title is nothing but, for mine it is process voltage and temperature. Okay, process voltage slash temperature. Okay, so this is done. Now again I have to close this tag. Now I want a header tag h2, the size of what I want to be displayed. Now let me close the header tag, sorry, close h2, and in this I want let the title, now h2, now title equal to pvt corner. Oh no, title we had already given h2. What do we want? pvt corner. This is how we write the headings. Let's execute this once and check whether it is correct or not. Let me close the td tag. Okay, there /td. So let's execute this and see what it shows. This is done. So here we have created the two columns. Okay, now if you check this, here also it is done. Okay, so next we will move ahead with the other headings. Okay, let's open this. Okay, so now these are the different table columns which I want in my table. So first is the, as we're seeing, the serial number, then the process voltage, temperature, the VPT corner. The next data element is the start and the end point hold. Then the next data element is the start and point setup. Then in nanoseconds is the whole slack. Then again in nanoseconds is setup slack. Then again in nanosecond WNS. Then again in nanosecond FEP, and so on. Okay, you just take a look. Now let's rerun this again. So let's escape. Now when you run, there has to be a total of 9 columns.